Hello everyone. Somehow we've made it to the holiday season and 2020 is finally coming to an end. Huzzah! So I thought for this episode we'd take a look at the humble Christmas carol. Now, if you're like me, then it's that time of the year when you hear them everywhere and you find yourself starting to jingle bell on a loop in your head. And if you're like me, you'll start to find this incredibly annoying. Christmas carols are the bright, cheerful sounds of the holidays that never stop. So today we'll talk a little bit more about why it is that they seem to drive everyone, or let's say most people, crazy.
So why do they get on our nerves? Why is our doorman, the nicest guy in the world, ready to sneak an album of Zeppelin or something through the speakers in the lobby in order to get some Christmas carol respite?
Well, I think for starters, there's a very easy answer to this question. Like I said before, you hear jingle bells about 1,000,000 times before the month is over, and probably more if you have kids. And of course, then there's the commercials too. I think I've seen that Honda commercial with the Carol of the Bells at least once a day since mid-November.
But other than that, the Christmas carols that get played all the time, the popular ones, the ones your kids sing in school, are generally speaking modern, at least in musical terms. Frosty the Snowman dates back from 1950. White Christmas was written in 1942 by Irving Berlin, who incidentally was Jewish and really struggled to write the song. Santa Baby was written in 1953 by Eartha Kitt. All I Want for Christmas was in 1994 by Mariah Carey. You can clearly see that I know all of these names.
You're going to tell us though, hey, what about Jingle Bells or Up on the Housetop? You're right, those are decidedly older. They're written in 1853 and 1864 respectively. So what do they all have in common? Well, the most obvious is the chord structure. They're all very comfortably settled in a major key, and they're constructed around a 1-4-5-1 Roman numeral analysis. Let me show you. So we're going to look at Up on the Housetop. We're going to do this one in C major. So very simply put, we start in C on our 1 chord, up to 4-6-4, back to 1, 5-6, and back to 1. So just those 3 chords. Now, if we put it together, then we have up on the housetop, the reindeer paws, out jumps good old Santa Claus, down through the chimney with lots of toys, all for the little ones' Christmas joys, and it goes on. So if it wasn't enough that they're all played on a loop, it doesn't hurt that essentially they are all pretty much the same song. Want to dig even deeper? All these examples are also Christmas songs as opposed to Christmas carols. Now, there's actually a really big difference, even though most of us use these words interchangeably. Christmas songs are secular in nature, while carols are sacred. In fact, the word carol dates back to the 1300s, meaning a song or dance of praise and joy. And obviously, back in the early 1300s, that word could have been applied to either pagan or monotheistic practices. The practice of singing Christmas carols specifically dates back to the Middle Ages and was all the rage into the Renaissance. Christmas, the celebration of Christ's birth, was kicked off on December 25th and continued until Twelfth Night on January 5th. It was a time of singing, dancing, feasting, theater. Cue the Shakespeare, because the play Twelfth Night was exactly that, mishap and romance around Christmas time. You might even argue that that was the original Christmas movie. So writing carols was so popular that even Henry VIII tried his hand at it, writing a carol, not Greensleeves, which is sometimes misattributed to him, but Green Growth the Holly. Now, it didn't quite catch on, and Henry VIII is still more popularly known as a wife killer rather than a composer. It should be mentioned, however, that there were times when Christmas carols, and indeed the celebration of Christmas altogether, was banned. Carols were banned in England in 1644, and Christmas was effectively cancelled when Oliver Cromwell and the Puritans came into power. Cromwell was on a mission to cleanse the nation of its most decadent of excesses, and Christmas was at the very top of that list.
And of course there was Soviet Union, which got rid of religion altogether, but canceling Christmas met with such great opposition that ruling bodies made a compromise, shifting the tree and giving of the gifts to the secular New Year. I remember all of this from my childhood growing up in Ukraine, but Christmas eventually came back to former Soviet Union as well as into England.
Caroling in particular rolled back with such a fervor that even composers like Mendelssohn and Holst were writing their own carols.
Mendelssohn was Jewish too.
Like Hark the Herald Angels Sing and In the Bleak Midwinter. By the by, I didn't know that. That's amazing. So going back to the structure of these pieces with Christmas songs and carols, as in all music, what makes some more interesting and memorable than others is the effect of rhythm and harmony. Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas may be harmonically predictable, but it's also super peppy and it's a ton of fun to sing along to. But this is also what sets classical music apart. It is often much more complicated and demands more focus from both the performer and the listener.
Let's take a moment to analyze one of Katha's favorite pseudo-Christmas carols. Greensleeves / What Child Is This? First off, what's the difference between Greensleeves and What Child Is This? They both have the same tune, obviously, but Greensleeves is much more older and is not a carol at all. It's a traditional English ballad, not by Henry VIII as mentioned earlier, but by a lost composer. By the way, the myth was that Lady Greensleeves was Anne Boleyn, since she so favored green, but that's really just a happy coincidence. It was first written down in 1580 by Richard Jones as a northern ditty of Ya Lady Greensleeves.
We did a recording of this a few years ago, actually, in an arrangement by Vaughan Williams. The song was popular enough to last down the ages to 1865, when it was set to a hymn written by William Chatterton Dix. Now, Dix was an insurance manager in England who had been struck by severe illness, and he underwent this spiritual renewal on regaining his health. Now, the reason I bring these particular songs up is because I wanted to talk about what makes them sound different. In 1580 and before that, the ideas of tonality in music as we know it today, with the major and minor keys, was not yet common practice. Very simply put, music was written in what were called church modes. Basically, this was before people had figured out the math to divide the scale into 12 equal pitches. Instead, they used these 7 modes: Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. Now, Greensleeves is written in the Dorian mode. It's almost like a minor scale. It's with a raised sixth, and in this case, there's a smattering of leading tones put in. And this is opposed to What Child Is This, which we're going to hear in E minor. So let's take a listen. So in Greensleeves and What Child Is This, we're going to hear them both in E. So we're going to hear What Child Is This E minor first, raised leading tone, or an E natural minor scale, without that leading tone. Now, Greensleeves we're going to do in E Dorian, so that means a raised sixth. That's your raised sixth there. So, to hear this. Alas, my love, you do me wrong to cast me off discourteously, and I have loved you oh so long, delighting in your company. Greensleeves was my delight, and Greensleeves was my heart of gold. Greensleeves was my heart of joy, and who but my lady Greensleeves? And now we have What Child Is This? What child is this who lay to rest on Mary's lap is sleeping, whom angels greet with anthems sweet, while shepherds watch are keeping? This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. so forgive the singing, I'm not a singer. But essentially, these two songs are almost exactly the same. The only difference is a little bit of flavor sprinkled in for Greensleeves, and that comes with the Dorian mode. But the C sharp and the C natural, it doesn't really make that big of a difference. What makes the difference is the text. Greensleeves is about unrequited love. It has a certain amount of playfulness in it, and it's sang that way. What Child is this? It's serene, it's joyous, but most importantly, the text is holy. As soon as the performer sees this text, it's going to affect the way they sing it. And this essentially is your big difference when you have a Christmas carol.
By the time 1580 rolled around, the Renaissance period was coming to an end, and the music followed suit, leaning toward a more tonal, scale-oriented system. Incidentally, modern music has made comeback in the 20th century. Classical and popular music. Vaughan, Bartók, Copland, Stravinsky, Khachaturian, Kodály, Glass, Reich, Part, I could go on. And we are not really familiar with popular music, but I do know one of my favorite bands, Radiohead, wrote a pyramid song in Phrygian mode.
Side note, ever wondered why classical musicians keep on making Radiohead covers? It's because their music is interesting. So I know we've branched off somewhat from the original topic of what makes Christmas carols get annoying, and the answer is they're not really. If you're a peppy person who enjoys having the same 3 chords played at you over and over, great, more power to you. I started singing the 12 Days of Christmas in the kitchen the other day, and Illya just about lost it. So that, my friends, is the true power of annoyance. But if you're like me and you really start to get sick of these songs after a while, I highly suggest turning to Christmas carols. They are more structurally interesting, they often have historical significance, and sometimes the music is so old that they just start turning modal. And they're never played enough anymore. Isn't that sort of sad? So some of my favorites are O Holy Night, The Seven Rejoices of Mary, Un flambeau Jeanne et Isabelle, Good King Wenceslas, God Rest You Merry Gentlemen, Noël Nouvelet, and Veni Emmanuel. Incidentally, those last two are from the 15th and 12th century, so go figure.
On another note, we have our Instagram accounts up and running. Check us out at aTonalHits or whirligig88. And we would also like to thank the Music City Review for a beautiful review of our latest album, Movements. And if you have a moment, check out their website.
We hope you learned a little bit of Christmas history and are inspired not to give up on Christmas carols because they can be really great. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a like, subscribe, and most importantly, leave a note with your favorite Christmas carols because we want to know. We'll see you next time, and happy holidays. Cheers!